The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
Huh? The Amorite king wants me to give the land back peaceably? No, he's got it all wrong. Messenger, I would like for you to return a message to the Amorite king. Tell them this. This is what Jephthah says. Israel did not take the land of Moab or the land of the Amorites, but when they came up out of Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness of the Red Sea and on to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, "Give us permission to go through your country." But the king of Edom would not listen. They sent also to the king of Moab, and he refused. So Israel stayed at Kadesh. Next, they traveled through the wilderness, skirted the lands of Edom and Moab, passed along the eastern side of the country of Moab, and camped on to the other side of the Arnon. They did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was its border. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, and said to him, "Let us pass through your country, to your own place." Sihon, however, did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. He mustered all his troops and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. Then the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and his whole army into Israel's hands, and they defeated them. Israel took over all the land of the Amorites who lived in that country, capturing all of it from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the desert to the Jordan. Now since the Lord, the God of Israel, has driven the Amorites out before his people Israel, what right have you to take it over? Will you not take what your God Shemosh gives you? Likewise, whatever the Lord our God has given us, we will possess. Are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever quarrel with Israel or fight with them? For 300 years, Israel occupied Heshbon, Aroer, the surrounding settlements, and all the towns along the Arnon. Why didn't you retake them during that time? I have not wronged you, but you are doing me wrong by waging war against me. Let the Lord, the judge, decide the dispute this day between the Israelites and the Amorites.
Have you ever tried to win favor with God, but in the wrong way? For example, "Oh God, if you just give me this job, I will do ... fill in the blank." Well, this week our main story focuses on Jephthah, and he did something similar, and it was completely unnecessary. We are covering Judges chapters 10 through 12. Stay tuned to see how it all plays out. Be blessed and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Hopefully everyone had a great week out there. Thank you all for tuning in again. And as always, if you like our content, please hit that like button or give us a 5-star rating or give us whatever you feel like we deserve on whichever platform you are listening on. Appreciate it. So last week we talked about Abimelech. This week, we are going to get into, did we talk about Abimelech last week? Yes, we did. Yep. For some reason, I'm thinking about Gideon again. I was like, no, did we talk about Gideon?
Well, I mean, it's an extension of Gideon, so.
Yeah, that's right. It's
the first judge whose offspring, we continued with, you feel me? So.
Yeah, and so now this week, we're going to roll through a couple of judges, and we got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm not going to spend too much time on our opening thought, but I mean, I think the best thing I can say right now is, it's going to be cliche, but just remember God ain't done with you yet. Like if you got lungs, hopefully you have lungs. If you got breath in your lungs, that I hope you have, like He's still got a plan for you, and He still can use you to accomplish something in life and bring someone closer to God. So just remember that. So yeah, nice quick thought. But we are going to be, that's the wrong thing. We're going to be in Judges chapter 10, starting off in Judges 10 this week. And so the first judge we come in contact with is Tola. So in Judges 10, verse 1, after the time of Abimelech, who was our previous judge that we covered and who died. See, Kaz, who killed Abimelech? Did the stone kill him, or did his servant kill him?
Well, his last dying wish was that his servant kill him, so that it will not be said, that a woman killed him. And for what it's worth, I am saying that a woman killed him. You understand what I'm saying? The thing that he feared the most, I am saying, but it was a joint effort. We could agree on that. we could settle on that. It was a joint effort.
Yes. Yeah. So after Abimelech, a man of the tribe of Issachar named Tola, son of Puah. The name Puah was so weird. Wasn't like one of the names of those maids in the beginning of Exodus? Was it like Puah and Tua or something like that? The name sounds familiar. I think it's one of those names.
Yeah.
Either way, so Tola, son of Puah, the son of Dodo, rose to save Israel. They lived in Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim. He led Israel for 23 years. He died and was buried in Shamir. So we see nothing too spectacular about Tola's judgeship. I don't know what their time of judging was called. But during the time of Tola, I would assume that Israel was, on their P's and Q's. They weren't really serving idols. We didn't see of any oppression.
Yeah. And, when their successor comes into place in this book, they start to say what happened in between. Well, they'll say when you turn away, and we don't have evidence of that. So, we can make the assumption that, things were moving as they should under the leadership of Tola and after.
Yeah. So now we have Jair, who was followed. He was followed by Jair of Gilead, who led Israel for 22 years. You see, Tola did it for 23. Jair, similar reign, 22. But he had 30 sons who rode 30 donkeys, and they controlled 30 towns in Gilead, which to this day are known as Jephthah, Gilead, or the settlements of Jair. When Jair died, he was buried in Kamun. So Jair, in my opinion, was living like a king with all these kids who all had their own means of transportation, who all ruled over their own towns. So he might not have the title, but he was definitely living like a big boss in charge.
Definitely. Like, that's undeniable. And it seemed like things were actually doing well because once again, this book is not shy about saying when the Israelites turned away, and we don't have no evidence of that during his 22-year reign.
Exactly. So now we've seen that's 2 consecutive reigns of a combined, 40.
50. Oh, 45, yeah.
45, yes. I was like, oh, big blunder for me. Anyway, so 45 years, combined reign, Israel was doing pretty well. And also too, I just want to point out, the amount of time that is passing in 2 verses, in 4 verses, that's already 45 years that just went by like that.
Mm-hmm.
So just to keep that timeline going, because we're going to see a timeline that our next judge, we're going to get into it. He's going to state to actually paint a picture of how long Judges has been up to this point. So in Judges 10 verse 6, again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So now we see this is after the rule of Jair. They did evil in the eyes of the Lord again. They served the Baals and the Ashtaroths and the gods of Amram, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines.
They worship every god. Any god come around them, they try to worship.
Yeah, okay. And then what I actually want to point out is that when you actually look at these gods and look at these surrounding areas, so we actually could see that more of, because we know Israel was split between, the Jordan River. You had 3 tribes 2.5 tribes on one side of the Jordan River that is going to come out when we actually talk about this judge, and yet the other X amount of tribes on the next side, right? And so they were surrounded by these nations to the north, the south, the east, and the west, because again, they didn't drive out everyone out of the land as they should. So you see the kingdoms to the north, they were more focused on like the gods of the Amorites. Came to the south, more focused on the gods of Moab. To the east was Philistia, so they were more focused on those gods. So like you see like now, the whole of Israel, the north, south, east, and west, they're all starting to focus on the gods of the surrounding nations around them. So I think that's really what this verse was really trying to point out.
Right, because we were focusing on the Baals and the Ashtaroths for quite a while, you know. But then you have to understand that not every nation worship Baal. You know, like the Philistines, who they worship. They just say the god of the. Well, we learn later they worship Dagon.
Dagon.
You know what I'm saying? But like based on right now, they just say the gods plural of the Philistines, the gods of the Ammonites, the gods of of Moab. You know, Sidon, and so it's just like. Whatever culture and whatever gods they come in with, the Israelites worshiping them.
Exactly. And so we see, and because the Israelites forsook the Lord and no longer served them, he became angry with them, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and the Ammonites, who that year shattered and crushed them. For 18 years, they oppressed all the Israelites on the east side of the Jordan in Gilead, the land of the Amorites. The Amorites also crossed.
This time is the Ammonites.
The Ammonites, yes. Yeah. The Ammonites crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. Israel was in great distress. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, "We have sinned against you, forsaking our God and serving the Baals." So even going back up, right?
They always know though, bro. There's no, bro.
And you would think they would learn, right? So you would really think they would learn. So now we see, and it says like they forsook God, and God sold them into the hands of the Philistines and Ammonites. So in that verse, and I know we talked about this before, but just like to reiterate this, they stopped worshiping God and stopped giving him their worship. So God essentially said, okay, you're clearly worshiping other gods. You don't want my protection. Now I'm going to let you experience based on your own actions that you've already displayed, what the protection of these other gods are going to bring you, which is nothing. So now you want to worship the Baal and the Ashtaroths. These are the gods who brought you out of Egypt. Worship them. And let's see where that's going to get you. And each time God restrains his protection away from the people, we see what happens. The other nations are empowered. And it's a false sense of security for these other nations because they're saying, oh yeah, our gods are doing this, but it's not. It's just God withholding his blessings from his own people that allow these other nations to rise up against his own people because they were not doing what they should do in serving him. And like, go for
it. So this time around, like we see God taking a different approach. And this reminds me of the book of Numbers when God actually take a different approach there too, as how we see in the book of Exodus, he was quite long suffering, even despite the fact that the book of Exodus documents him being extremely angry in various circumstances or situations that the Israelites put God in. He's angry. I'm going to destroy all you. Moses intervenes. You know, we see that in Exodus and Numbers. But when Numbers come around, God kind of take a step back, like, all right, that's what y'all want, have it. You know what I'm saying? Or Balaam, you wanna go and take this job from Balak, you could have it. You understand what I'm saying? But when you have it, it's still, you could go and do everything you want to do, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna allow you to curse. So you could go and act like you could go and you could have the will to do it, but I'm not gonna give you the capability of doing it. And we know how that story was. Right now, God is saying, all right, y'all want to worship idols? I'll show you what does happen when you worship idols. I'll show you the way idols defend you, which is they don't defend you, you know? And truthfully, there's something that should go without saying. But God is like, to me, this like a human approach, like God actually having a conversation with y'all, like, hold on, no. Y'all say y'all wanted this, and now I am giving you all this. Let them defend you. And like, to me, this is so interesting. This is very interesting because
I feel like this is something like to me, this is what I would explain from day one. I'd be like, bro, why y'all worshiping these idols? These idols ain't doing nothing for you. You understand? But it's so funny because like before day one, on day 0, God say, when y'all go in this land, don't worship these idols. You understand what I'm saying? So it wasn't a cause and effect. God take the preventative measures to make sure that y'all do not go through this, but they still go through it. So it's like, I don't even have to even really explain to you why you shouldn't, because from the jump, before y'all even see these idols, I was like, hey, idols can be in this land. Don't do that. It's a bunch of stuff they do towards these idols. Don't do that. You understand? But the Israelites, they completely forgot or was not taught or just didn't care. Whatever it is. So now we see God really breaking it down like, bro, we just had 45 years of good life. Before that. See, at this point in time, right, the Israelites who live now, they probably like, I ain't give a number, but they multiple generations live. They have been living in this land for multiple generations. So
well,
in their
300 years, we're going to see.
Right. So in their history accounts, they could say, hold on, a century ago, like they could do basically what we doing. Where we read, we see, oh, they cried out to God and he's saved. Bro, this is history now. This is common knowledge. In real time, the first sets of Israelites who were going through it, they might not have seen the parallel. It's easy for us to see because we were removed from the situation, but they may not have honestly been able to grasp that, all right, this is what's causing this. And when we stop, this is saving us, But now God is like, all right, I really have to spell it out. And that's exactly what he did. He mentioned the people who had already enslaved God's people, even dating before the land of Canaan. And how, when you stop worshiping these idols, I hear you, and I save you. And so I just find that interesting, just the way how God handling it this time, as opposed to all of the other times.
And so now we're seeing pick it up in verse 11. The Lord replied, when the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Sidonians, the Amalekites, the Moabites, the Midianites, that's their other word, oppressed you and you cried to me for help. Did I not save you from their hands? But you have forsaken me and served the other gods, so I will no longer save you. Go and cry out to the other gods you have chosen. Let them save you when you are in trouble. But the Israelites said again,
I say, period.
Yeah. But the Israelites said again, we have sinned. Do with us whatever you think best, but please rescue us now. And see, that to me, that doesn't even really show repentance. Like, go for it.
But you know what that does show me? That they are aware, fully aware, that this is the God of the universe, and this is the God who can and will save them. Like this showing me 100% that they know these other idols can't save them. That's what I get from that. They saying, all right, God, I willing to do whatever it takes for you to come and save me, because that's the only option I have right now. So you could punish us X, Y, Z, but just save us from this. Like that's like when you're. That's like, let's say you go. I know this could be a weird analogy. Sorry, bro. Let's say you break curfew. Like your parents tell you, don't leave the house or whatever. You leave the house, right? You end up getting in trouble, right? While out, it come a time when you have to just swallow your pride and be like, I got to call my mommy. I got to call my daddy. They're going to fuss at me. They're going to punish me. But I know that's the only thing I need that's going to save me from this situation right here.
Exactly.
And that's going to, them punishing me is not going to be as bad to me as the situation what I'm in right now. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what that remind me of. And they just like, yo, I submit, like I know punishment coming, but just the only way.
We're doing what it takes right now just to get out of this situation. And we see in verse 16, after that, they did get rid of their foreign gods among them and serve God. And he could bear Israel's misery no longer. When the Ammonites were called to arms and camped in Gilead, the Israelites assembled to watch camp at Mizpah. And we know Mizpah was the place where, was it Laban and Jacob, Israel, made their
treaty.
It's a good word. I like that word, treaty. The leaders of the people of Gilead said to each other, whoever will take the lead in attacking the Ammonites will be head over all who live in Gilead.
And so what's interesting to me though is that God has already made up in his mind that he's going to save them, right? But it's like, how do they know that? That's interesting to me because like, do we have someone during this time who connected with God? You're like, was it Gideon? A prophet came, and prophesied that, how God felt about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So right at this current moment, we know God is planning to save them. But to the Israelites, I'm wondering, do they know that? You know what I'm saying? Is it still business as usual? Are we still crying out to the Lord? Are we still trying?
I mean, they might have had, because they might have had prophets. I'm pretty sure they started, because we see already, they started up prophets, even though they're not all documented in this part. They definitely probably had prophets in that time saying, hey, God has heard your cry, and here you go. He's going to raise up someone amongst you. Another judge is probably going to be risen up to help to lead you guys in this endeavor to go against the Ammonites and these other oppressive kingdoms.
Yeah. So, but the long story short, God had already decided that he was going to save them. That's one part. And then the Israelites are still rallying to try to defeat them. You understand? Whether they know or not, that God has already agreed to, give the Ammonites over to their hands.
Mm-hmm. So now in chapter 11 of Judges, Jathart the Gileadite was a mighty warrior. His father was Gilead, conveniently. His mother was a prostitute. Interesting. Gilead's wife also bore him sons, and when they were grown up, they drove Jephthah away. You are not going to get any inheritance in our family, they said, because you are the son of another woman. So Jephthah fled from his brothers and settled in the land of Tob, where a gang of scoundrels gathered around him and followed him.
He's a gangbanger, as we would say. That's how I look at him, because he's a scoundrel himself, but he's a mighty warrior. You understand what I'm saying?
Renegade.
What's interesting to me about him, though, we have a similar thing with him, a Gileadite, but then Amalek, that's his name, right? Abimelech. He was in a similar situation. He was the son of Gideon via concubine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was she also a prostitute?
I mean,
I think she was a concubine.
She was a concubine.
I think she was it was just unlawful. But now this is the same thing with Jephthah. But what's a little more shameful is that his mother is a prostitute. So we have the half brother, or the black sheep of the family, both roles,
Mm-hmm.
kind of back to back, in a sense. But this time we have somebody who acknowledges God, Jephthah. We're not sure of his relationship with God totally, but we do know that he fears God. Both of them hung with scoundrels. I'm seeing a direct parallel here, but by the grace of God, the outcome was not the same. You know what I'm saying? Abimelech just went crazy. Power got to his head. He just tried to kill everything. You understand? But Japhtha is like, well, we can get to Japhtha. Right now, we only mention him and his crew.
So some versions say scoundrel, some versions say worthless man. And so it's an interesting term because they say like that gang that was around him, they might have not really been like robbing people per se. They could have been attacking the little other towns and villages. Like, how Abimelech was attacking his own people. These people were doing like the opposite. They were attacking the Amorites. Because again, so now I say when you actually look at where Gilead is pretty close to the which they call the Amorites, the Amorites and Ammonites. So Gilead's on the east side of the Jordan. So this is in the tribe of Manasseh. On the next side, with the other half tribe of Manasseh, with the Gadites and the Reubenites, or whatever they was going by those days. So this is on the opposite side. And so they was pretty much up north too. So they was like pretty close to the Amorites then. And so like he might have been up there, like they say he might have been up there in the mountains just terrorizing these other people. So it was almost like he could have been like a little protector of the Israelites without even being directly with the Israelites.
Yep.
And then so sometime later when the Ammonites were fighting against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to Jephthah from the land of Tob. Come, they said, be our commander so we can fight the Amorites. Which is, and see, this is also interesting too. So it's like the Bible already introduces him as a mighty warrior. And they went out to seek him, say like, yeah, we need a leader and it's going to be you.
Him, just specifically.
The guy who was up in the mountains with the scoundrels.
Yeah.
It's going to be you. And Jephthah said to them, didn't you hate me and drive me from my father's house? Why do you come to me now when you're in trouble? And it's so interesting, like how he said that to them, because it's almost the same thing as what they're doing to God. Like, you guys only cry out to God when you need help. Each time when things are going good, you don't really even hear y'all about doing anything good. Even when y'all worshiping these Baals and stuff for a couple of years, and it's only until y'all getting the oppression and deep in the oppression that we see y'all crying out for help. Like, just think about it. This has been going on for 18 years now. Why y'all just get to the point that y'all really don't like it? 18 years. What'd you say?
No, I say out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Just out of nowhere. And that's my very point, bro. When the punishment, when the rubber hit the road, right? When it gets thick, they know exactly what to do. Miraculously, they know exactly what to do. You understand what I'm saying? Even when God was like, no, I ain't helping y'all. God say, I'm not helping y'all, bro. They got to help them. They didn't take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even occur to them. Maybe we should give the Baals, the Ashtoreths, the gods of the Philistines, the gods of the XYZ a chance. No, because they know better, bro. Like, they like, okay, guys, now time to play for real now. Time to play serious now, you know? And that's what it is now for Japhtha, because he's shunned away from his brothers. He's a lowlife. He's a scoundrel just like the rest of these guys. Lowlife men. But when you need me, I ain't so much of a lowlife no more, right? Because truthfully, by status-wise, you can call him that. But in terms of talent and value to society, you can't deny his power. Because if there was a man who was more equipped than him, why didn't you all go to them? Why didn't you all go to a person who was born lawfully, you know, who was a good warrior? There probably was not none. So why you treat me like I ain't talented at all? And Jephthah, after being shunned away and robbed of his inheritance, if any, because he was the child of a prostitute, he might have never had no inheritance, but he robbed of any opportunity of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now y'all coming to him and he like, bro, I'm not gonna let y'all forget what y'all put me through for real, like, because this ain't no playful thing. You understand? Y'all hurt my feelings potentially. I'm speaking for him. I don't know if that's what it was. He probably didn't care, but he like, bro, just I want y'all to know that I'll be doing y'all a huge favor if that's the case. You know, this already seems sketchy to me and all. Why y'all coming to the low life? That don't make sense. You know, why y'all don't go to the king's men or the judge's family? Where Jair 30 sons? He ain't got no godsons or nothing.
Real.
Go check him.
And so we see the elder said to him, nevertheless, I like how they ain't even really acknowledge it. They say, hey, you're worrying about the wrong things. Nevertheless, we coming to you now. Come with us to fight the Ammonites. It really annoys me sometimes that those two nations are so close together. Right? Yeah.
But to them, they just like, bro, all right, you right, you know, but we don't even have time to get into all of these semantics and conversations, bro. And we don't even have an excuse, bro. We treat you dirty. We need you now. You doing it or what, bro?
Exactly. And they try to sweeten the deal. You will be head over us. You'll be head over all us who live in Gilead. So Jephthah answered them, suppose you take me back to fight the Ammonites and the Lord gives them to me. Will I really be your head?
Yeah. Because this don't sound right. The person who you refuse so much,
Mm-hmm.
y'all about to make me king? What's the catch? Are y'all lying to me? Y'all about to rob me again? Like,
and the elder said to him, the Lord is our witness. We will certainly do as you say. So when Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and command over them, and he repeated all his words before the Lord in Mizpah. And it's just so interesting that like this whole agreement was, by Mizpah too. It's the whole like, may the Lord watch between me and you. You keep your word, I keep mine, and God gonna be the judge between us both.
mm-hmm. The Bible has a lot of parallels in that way, bro. Even as simple as him being the like kind of like an unlawful child hanging around scoundrels, and then he'd have a different path. Like it's bro, it's just I don't know. I feel like it's very intriguing stuff when you analyze the people of the Bible, the similarities, and then the contrast between them.
And so what's so interesting, like I like his approach, because we see in the past judges we've had, it was a straight wartime.
Yeah, straight to business.
So this scoundrel, in my opinion, tried to attack it diplomatically at first.
Yeah, let's talk it out.
Yeah, like let me understand what you really want. Like, what's your angle here,
bro? A lot of things could really be diffused just by a simple conversation, bro. Somebody swallow their pride and say, "Let me just hear you out." Granted, this ain't one of them times now. You understand? But I applaud his efforts for even taking this route.
What's so interesting to me is that the king even had that much respect to answer him back. Is first of all, who are you to come to me to ask me this question?
That's what I was thinking too. Because he sent a servant, right? Did you send a prestigious servant? Do you have one of those? You understand what I'm saying? Probably not. And this person, they attacking us for like 18 years now. They don't owe us nothing. They're already in the lead, bro. Like y'all already winning. You know what I mean? But he still take the time to hear. We don't know if he was listening, but he hear him out. He heard Japhtha out.
So we see. Okay, so just to go back to it. So now in Judges 11:12. Jephthah asks, "What do you have against me that you've attacked my country?" And so the king of the Ammonites answered Jephthah's messengers, "When Israel came up out of Egypt, they took away my land from Arnon to Jabbok, all the way to Jordan. Now give it back peacefully." So now what's so interesting to me is that, first of all, you wasn't even born yet. So this ain't even your land. Second of all, it wasn't even really your ancestors' land to begin with either. You know what I'm saying? And this guy just saying, give it back peacefully. But y'all trying to take it forcefully.
Yeah. What? y'all, where does peace thing come from though? Like, this wasn't there in the beginning.
And so now we see Jephthah. He said,
he had to give him a history lesson.
Because my boy Jephthah was like, clearly, I don't think you understand the history lesson behind this. Like, you might have gone back in your ancient scrolls and be like, oh yeah, we used to have all of this land. Right? He's like, okay, you realize, or you look back at an old map. Oh, we used to have all this land is ours. And Jephthah is like, hold on, let me give you a history lesson. Because you're dealing with half-truths here. Exactly. But Jephthah said, Israel did not take the land from Moab or the land of the Ammonites. But when they came out of Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and on to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messages to the king of Edom saying, give us permission to go through your country. But the king of Edom would not listen. Then they also sent messages to the king of Moab. He also refused. So Israel stayed in Kadesh. Also, go back to our previous episodes when we cover all of this. It's all documented. And then he said, next, they traveled through the wilderness, skirted the lands of Edom to Moab. Remember this. Passed along the eastern side of the country of Moab and camped on the other side of Arnon. And they did not enter the territory of Moab, for Arnon was its border. This is all documented in the Bible. Then go for it.
The same Balaam, who we mentioned earlier in this right back again. So the book of Numbers, and I want to say the 20 something. 20, one of the chapters in the 20s. Oh, this happened for the first time.
And then so now in verse 19, then Israel sent messages to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled Heshbon, and said to them, let us pass through your country to our own place. Shion, however, did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. He mustered all his troops and encamped in Jahaz and fought with Israel. Then the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Shion and his whole army into Israel's hands, and they defeated them. Israel took over all the land of the Amorites who lived in that country, capturing all of it from Arnon to Jabbok and from the desert to the Jordan. See, we've seen that same territory that you thought was yours. No. This is how we really got it. Yep. And he said, now since the Lord, the God of Israel, has driven the Amorites out before his people of Israel, what right do you have to take it over?
You was an Ammonite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Will you not take what your God, Chemosh, gives you? Likewise, whatever the Lord our God has given us, we will possess. Are you better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever quarrel with Israel or fight with them?
Since you want to go back in history, right? Since you want to give us the history lesson of what's going on, let me give you the history. You know what I mean? Are you better than that king? And that king fed us. You understand? He know what was going on. That's why he had to take the route of summoning Balaam to try to get us. You know, us being the Israelites, of course. But now I like Jephthah. Jephthah really, he doing a good job. I ain't gonna lie. This is well documented, well thought out, well explained rebuttal.
Exactly, for a guy who was like, a scoundrel.
Yeah.
And he goes to say, for 300 years, Israel occupied Heshbon, Aor, the surrounding settlements, and all the towns along the Arnon. Why didn't you retake them during that time? That's also a good point too. He's saying, guess what? Y'all had 300 years, 3 centuries. And guess what? If we was to go back, I actually did. If we was to go back and add up all this judge reigned for this long, and it was a peacetime for this long, and this long, you actually get up to 319, but, I'm going to give him his 19 years and just say, 3 centuries. What's the bigger number here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So 3 centuries to this point. Y'all had 3 centuries. We've been in this land for 3 centuries. Y'all had this long to come at us and try to take this land back. I have not wronged you, but you are doing me wrong by waging war against me. And
because bro, the Israelites sinned so much times. They worship so much, bro. Like the kingdoms was taking turns, enslaving and punishing and just terrorizing Israel. Now y'all want to do this, bro? Y'all have 300 years to have your turn, bro. Like, why now, dog? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you come from around there, bro. Like.
And again, you see, it even comes back full circle to the Mizpah thing. He said, let the Lord judge. Decide this. Let the Lord, the judge, decide this dispute between us, the Israelites, and the Ammonites. Which is so interesting too, because you see now, he's saying, guess what? I see your angle. This ain't no battle between the two armies. It's a battle between our two gods now, because you're trying to take back what our God gave us. And I like it later too. When you conquer in the name of Chemosh, your God, don't you take whatever you get? And don't you keep it? So our God gave us this land. We conquered this for our God. Now you trying to come take it because you say it's yours. Where you get off at? And you know what? If your God bigger than mine, let's see. Let the Lord decide this now.
So we can understand why, as you mentioned off mic, he was described as a man of faith, just based on that. Because
in Hebrews 11, for people who want to go back and check that.
Because here it is in your thesis, in your big argument, right? You doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on God. You understand what I'm saying? You saying how God give us all of this, and this between my God and your God. Let's see what's going on. You understand what I'm saying? This guy had mighty faith that the Lord will deliver. Now, at the time, God had already said, he could, stand there crying no more. And, he about to give them over to, Japhtha and the Israelites. Did Japhtha know that, though? This is the question I ask myself, and the reason I ask this is because if he did know that, it would not explain the way he exercises faith. But if he didn't know that, it would 100% explain the things that he did, which we're gonna cover in like shortly. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just like, the guy really believed in God, you know, and he did well at representing God and speaking on behalf of God, in my opinion. But the practicality of it, you know, that's what I don't understand. Like when it come to him, because the Bible don't just this book, Judges, it don't describe him in a spiritual light. It don't say now he was a man of God or a wise man, a humble man, a righteous man, XYZ. They just say this guy was born of a prostitute, hung around scoundrels, and now we see him talking such great things about God. You know, it leads me to believe that he does know, but to what extent? I don't know, especially during a time when they were worshiping every god, like every god in the region, you know?
And so now we see in verse 28, the king of Ammon, however, paid no attention to that message Jephthah had sent him. He's like, yep, okay. You served your usefulness. I'm no longer talking to this scoundrel.
Just like the, you know, it's a joke where they'd say like a girl would pour her heart out to a guy via text, like of this long paragraph, and he might just be like, what you mean? Like he just
okay.
Yeah, okay, you know what I mean? Okay, or just leave on red. That's what he did. He leave on scene.
Left him on
the
red.
Bahamas we say blue tick. You know what I mean? So he don't care.
He did not. And so now we see in verse 29, the Spirit of the Lord came on Jephthah. He crossed Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from there he advanced against the king of the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord. If you give the Amorites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me, when I return in triumph from the Amorites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice as a burnt offering. Full stop. First of all, even reading this back for like the fifth time, it's just so interesting. We see the Spirit of the Lord was already upon him before he even made this vow, which even shows even more how unnecessary this vow even was to be made.
Okay.
And,
no, go on, my bond. I mean to cut you off.
No, because I was going to say too, it's like how much times we try to make vows to God in this regard, saying, oh yeah, God, if we do this, I'll do this. It's almost like to trying to get God on our side, whereas we should be trying to be on God's side. And we see God was already on it. Well, I shouldn't say he was already on. Well, God was already on his side, for lack of a better word. We see like the Spirit of the Lord already descended upon him. Like, yeah, the Spirit of God was ready with you in your advancement to go conquer the Ammonites. You take it upon yourself to have some extra courage to make this vow. Go for it.
No, all right. So now that explains why he spoke so eloquently and so well on God's behalf. The Spirit of the Lord was upon him. You know what I'm saying? But right here, this 100% ain't the Spirit of the Lord. You know? And if you're reading this out of context, you might not know if this is the Spirit of the Lord or not. Reason being, we see a few books back in the book of Genesis, God asks Abraham, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son.
All habits die hard.
Right. So God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son. And this has confused a lot of people. Why God do that? It don't make sense. God did not allow him to sacrifice his son. This was a symbol of God who is going to have to sacrifice his son. Right. So so like the story of the Abraham, they build it up. So, he just wanted a son. Chapter after chapter, he talking about this son, but he ain't come around. When he finally get this thing that he loves so much, he got to sacrifice it now. We have to understand God's position with his son. Right. And this was like a human example of it. God takes no delight in child sacrifices. How do we know specifically? How do we know that specifically?
Hold on, before you get there, just keep your point, because we jumping the gun a little bit.
Oh, my bad.
We jumping the gun a little bit.
I jumped the gun. My bad, bro. My bad. Go ahead.
It's all good. I can get there because you're ready there. So now in verse 32, we see he went over to fight the Ammonites. The Lord gave him into his hands. He devastated the 20 towns of the Ammonites, devastated them. So now, remember this vow he just made. So in verse 34, when Jephthah returned home to Mizpah, who should come out to meet him but his daughter, dancing to the sound of timbrels? She was an only child, except for he had neither son nor daughter. So now you could go.
Oh, so, all right, bro, this is my thing. Before we get to that, I'm so mad I jumped the gun. I'm mad I jumped the gun. But, bro,
I was like, he on a roll. I was like, okay, let me just get this so it could be tying together.
And I feel like I've been ahead this whole episode, bro. Excuse me. I feel like I've been spilling the beans this whole episode. But watch this, right? Who did Jephthah think was going to come out that door, Earl?
That's my point exactly. That's my point exactly. Because to me, here's the thing too, right? He could have made a vow saying, Lord, I'm going to offer a big sacrifice or something when I come back from I'm going to offer you the best goat or best lamb or best calf or something when I come back as a sacrifice.
See,
what do you say?
He needed it more than what a lamb could have do.
I mean, because he's supposed to say, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph. That's so specific. Like he wanted to sacrifice his wife or something.
Bro.
Not even to make a joke, right? But like, unless you're keeping animals in your house, what do you expect? Because he even say to meet me when I return in triumph. You know what I'm saying, bro? Like, it's so specific. It's like going back to like our last episode or 2 episodes ago, we were saying like there was like 2 episodes ago we were talking about Gideon. When he keep on asking for like such specific signs for God. So this way he literally say, okay, if a blue, like I will sacrifice this blue Cadillac when it comes out to me.
Right. But my thing is this, right? What's the probability of something that is not a human coming out your house? Now, we don't have no evidence of him, so we can't even answer that, right? But my thing is, it sounds like you were content to kill whoever come out your house, bro. And you would have had to thought about that. You know, my wife, my sister, my brother, my mother. You understand what I'm saying? My daughter, you know? But like, to me, it's so crazy because like when you give God an ultimatum like this, and everyone who've experienced this, you don't come half stepping. You was oversell. Almost always you oversell. You can say, Lord, I'll fast today if you XYZ. But no, like you could say, God, I'll fast this meal if you XYZ. No, you might say, Lord, I'll fast for a whole day. I'll fast for a whole 2 days. I'll never do XYZ again. You know, if you provide your end of the bargain. You understand? Like a lot of times we oversell because of how bad we want it, not understanding what it'll actually take to fulfill this thing without the accountability of someone watching you and saying, no, don't do that. You promise. You know, that's Jephthah. Jephthah oversell. Jephthah's in my mind, he came to this point because I could offer you a sacrifice. I could offer you a lamb without blemish, a cow, a calf, or whatever. That ain't enough. It have to be something you know I care about, Lord. Anything in my house getting sacrificed when they come out, Lord. That's how bad I want this. So now I pose the question, did Jephthah know that the Lord was already on his side? Was he aware of that? We know that because that's the authors write that in for us to know. Did Jephthah and the Israelites know? Because before Jephthah was even chosen, the Lord was on their side. We see, all right, so Jephthah is the mightiest. Well, we don't know if he's the mightiest, but he is a very mighty warrior, right? About 2 chapters prior, or not even 2 chapters. For Gideon was the least of his clan and one of the least clans. The Lord don't need a mighty warrior. You understand what I'm saying? And so this leads me to believe that the Israelites and Gideon were not aware or not fully aware that God was on their side. Jephthah, my bad. Thank you. That they were aware or fully aware that the Lord was already on their side.
I get that.
Yeah.
But to me, it's still like, and granted, you could be going through all this dialogue, not knowing if God fully on your side, but part of me feels like he knew. And it just goes back to almost making a promise too good to your first point. That was too good that you know you probably couldn't keep, but it sounded good in the moment. It's like you over-promising something you just can't deliver, or making a promise that you know you shouldn't be making it. You shouldn't be making it. What is that? I don't know. But
but I feel the opposite though. I feel like he was okay with making this promise, but hoping that it's not the worst possible scenario.
So it goes back to my point. He could have been his wife or a servant or something.
Right. I think he was saying that, but truthfully, he was hoping it's one of the lesser people in my family. Because at the end of the day, we know he's okay with offering a burnt sacrifice of a human being. Period. We know he's okay with that. Like me, I could be real. I have no desire to eat like crab, shellfish, pork. I don't think I've ever eaten these things. Well, not to my knowledge. I never purposely eaten these things, even since I was young. That I just don't have any desire to it. Right? I'll never say, bro, if you do X, Y, bro, if you do that, I'll eat pork. You know what I mean? Because, bro, I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have no desire to do that, like, period. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna die. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, but I don't feel like that's as big a sacrifice as literally a human sacrifice as what Jephthah said. But there's certain things I just, I know, like that's non-negotiable for me, because at the end of the day, I know God don't particularly want me doing this, you know? And so I wouldn't offer that to God. I don't know if Jephthah knew if this was right or wrong. For instance, and this was all right, let me just rewind a little bit. Back to my point about Abraham and Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
God used that as an example. It was a symbol. God has no delight in child sacrifices. As a matter of fact, he speaks directly against it. Do you have that other text that you mentioned earlier? I'm about to go into the text that I mentioned. Which is coming.
I got them. So the first one I got to Leviticus 18:21. And you shall not let any of your descendants pass through the fire to Molech, nor shall they be profaned God. So Molech was, so context in this one, Molech was the god that the surrounding nation, I think it's really Philistine or the Amorites, that was the god they offered child sacrifices to. So again, this was like, remember, God gave them all these rules in Leviticus and Deuteronomy to set themselves up apart, different from these other nations. And then this one in Deuteronomy kind of spells it even clearer. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, referring to these child sacrifices. For every abomination to the Lord, which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters on the fire to their gods.
Mm-hmm. And then, where was that last one from?
Deuteronomy 12:31.
12:31. So now even in Deuteronomy 18, this one, like, and these things getting more specific as the text go on. Deuteronomy 18, verse 9 to 14 or 12. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Very specific. Very specific. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts out spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or consults the dead. And so these guys were worshiping idols, but when it come to their idols, it was no detestable thing that they would withhold from their idols. And as a result, Israel was doing the same, because they worshiped their idols and they followed the practices of the surrounding nations. So now Jephthah, who knows God, but also knows the idols, I feel like, is completely conflicted and cannot tell the difference between right and wrong, what God requires or not. So to him, this is what I am assuming from this. To him, the ultimate sacrifice is to sacrifice a human being, human sacrifice to your God, which is detestable to God. If you would just read Deuteronomy, he would have, we know Jephthah, if not for the Holy Spirit, Jephthah more than likely should know Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, because you give us the history. Unless that was just the Holy Spirit talking. What about Deuteronomy, bro? It says it right here. No human sacrifice, no child sacrifices, etc. But to Jephthah, he's like, man, God, I willing to bet it all for you. I'd sacrifice a human. I'd sacrifice someone in my house for you. That's how bad I want you. But God never asked for that. As a matter of fact, he specifically asked that you do not give him that. And what was that text that you referenced off mic? It was from like 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel?
1 Samuel 15:22. I literally just pulled it up. Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice. To heed is better than the fat of rams.
And so, in all honesty, and this the kind of unfortunate thing about this is, 2 Samuel was obviously after Judges. You know what I'm saying? But this is a lesson that Jephthah should have known. You know, it would have been good for him to know that obedience is better than sacrificing. You obey God and do what He tell you to do. He likes that more than you sacrificing something, especially something that He told you not to sacrifice unto Him. And so now we see the dilemma with Jephthah. And I'm really the real reason why I'm going so in depth and being so long-winded about this is because when I read this, a lot of times I go for a run or I work out and I just listen to the Bible. And sometimes I'm not concentrating. When I listened to this a few months ago, it disturbed me to hear that. And I was really like, bro, that's not right. Why is this leader of God doing this thing? That's not right, bro. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, if I did not know morally in my heart that wasn't right, I would question, does God require us to do these type of things? Because it's in the Bible. We see a leader of God working with God, doing that unto God. And there wasn't nothing right there where God said, no, don't do that. You understand what I'm saying? Like when you just read the Bible, read that text out of context, you can say, well, he do it. This in the Bible. Why can't I do that? And you will be right. It is in the Bible. But was it permitted in the Bible? And my point that I'm making here is there are people, there are leaders, there are just regular members of the Bible who are not doing thus said the Lord. They are a bad example in the Bible. But the fortunate thing about that, the fortunate thing though, is that the Lord teaches you right and wrong. Mm-hmm. If we go to the text if we go to the books before Judges, He's already outlined what should be done and what should not be done. So by the time you get here, you should already have that to memory and already have an understanding to that so that you could discern that what he did was wrong without the Bible having to go and say what he did was wrong every single time.
Yeah, man. And like, I guess even to add on to your point, but I guess close at the same time, I'll just synopsis. Like even spirit-filled men can do foolish things, as we're going to see, as we've seen already in the Bible, Abraham having a son with Sarah. The list goes
Isaac
on and on.
Stealing the birthright, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, not Isaac, Jacob stealing the birthright.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, the Holy Spirit doesn't, control us. Per se, saying like our free will can still be, we can still resist the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So whereas we see this man who thought he was offering something to God, it was just foolish and dumb, and he was not inspired by God in that decision at all. Because we see at the end, right? And we continue now. He cried. He tore his clothes and cried when he saw his daughter come out. Oh no, my daughter. You have brought me down and I am devastated. I have made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break. So here's the thing. Yes, you made a vow to the Lord, but the vow you made to the Lord was foolish and one that does not please the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So now in this action, because if you read Ecclesiastes 5, it talks about keeping your vows to the Lord, but also talking about not being foolish in your vows to the Lord. Again, I would pull it up, but that's going to digress a little bit. So here we see he having a conflict in his morality that he shouldn't be having to begin with. Because when you already made this foolish vow, you made this vow, and now the result of it is doing something that you know is going to be wrong against God. This vow is invalid because you know in me sacrificing my daughter, God is not going to be pleased with that at all. You know what I'm saying? Like goes back to Samuel. Is a sacrifice better than obedience? The Lord wants our obedience. Going back to your point, Kazi, he already told us in these multiple passages, and he hammered it down multiple times in Deuteronomy and Leviticus again. So it's like, like quintuple, however much times he repeated it, that, sacrificing children, human sacrifices, period, is wrong. I don't want it. It's detestable to me. I don't like it. Do not do it. That's for these other people out here doing foolishness. So now you see this whole thing right here. Yeah, you crying, but this vow you made was wrong. And so now you're trying to say, oh yeah, I can't break this vow to the Lord, but the Lord ain't require you to do this at all. He never, ever once told you to sacrifice your daughter to him. He never
There's a vow between you and yourself right now, bro. He
It's a
doesn't
vow
even know
between
it.
you and your pride. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so her, again, which is so interesting, she said, my father, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised. Now the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. But
That's so sad. That's so sad to me, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
and see, right, and the part about this I don't like in this, God didn't give you the Amorites because of your vow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now it's like you're trying to tie it back to like, oh yeah, I told God I would do this if he does this, so he did this, so now I must do this. But God was doing this irregardless of what you did. You know what I'm saying? Like the victory is already y'all own. You took it upon yourselves. Like it's like it's almost like y'all conflating the series of events. You saying I did this, so God did this, but God already did this. But then you still went and did this, thinking that God wasn't doing this, but God already did this. And so now you're trying to tie God and your daughter to this fate that you made, irrespective of consulting God and irrespective of consulting your daughter, and just making a dumb promise all to begin with.
Bro, it was already done, bro. Before you was even called, the Ammonites, the writing was on the wall for them before the Israelites even approach you with this proposal. You know?
Exactly. So she said, okay, grant me this one request. Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends because I will never marry. Interesting request. He said, you may go. And he let her go for 2 months. She and her friends went to the hills, wept because she should never marry. After 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he vowed, which implies he sacrificed her, and she was a virgin. From this comes the Israelite tradition that each year young women go to Israel out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jathart the Gileadite. All right, so some people does say that he didn't sacrifice her, but to me, nothing in the Bible indicates anything else but a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So I just want to point it out there because I mean, some people might comment or say that, but there's nothing from the Bible that indicates anything else different.
Yeah, because when Hannah dedicated her son Samuel to the priest Eli and stuff, it was clear that he was working in the temple.
And then the term dedicated was used, not this man said
sacrifice.
burnt sacrifice. Like to me, they're two different things, man. Like they two different complete translations. So two different meanings completely. Like we know Samuel was dedicated to God. Mm-hmm. This one was completely like burnt sacrifice.
And then why would you cry? Like I don't know that you would be that sad if your daughter gonna be alive. She just ain't gonna marry. I don't know that you would be that emotionally invested in that way, opposed to knowing that you have to kill your daughter or knowing that you have to not see your daughter for the rest of the life because of something what you did. You know, it just makes sense to me that he went through with the burnt offering. And then when they say that he did exactly as he promised, to me, that kind of seals it for me.
Exactly, because I'm like, what did he vow? He literally vowed burnt sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
So Jephthah, Judges chapter 12 now. The Amorite forces were called out. They crossed over Zaphon. They said to Jephthah, why did you go to fight the Ammonites without calling us to go with you? We're going to burn down your house.
Biggity.
And my thing is like, all of us was under oppression. Why do I have to call y'all each time?
Bro, like everybody that fight the Ephraimites want to come now, but we know for sure when Gideon fight, the Ephraimites like, hold on, bro, why you only call me? You know what I'm saying?
My thing is like, if you're all so eager to fight, why don't y'all just rise up and fight each time there's any hint of oppression? Any hint of any of the nations rising up, y'all should be the first to go. If I have to call y'all each time, clearly y'all don't want to lead. That's just my opinion.
And why y'all so mad though? Like we win. We win now, bro. It's done. Like what you upset about? Like if y'all had lost, I could see you being upset. Like why y'all didn't call us, bro? Now you making a bigger mess of things.
But then if we lose, be dead. At least we try.
Yeah.
And so we see he answered, I and my people were engaged in a great struggle with the Ammonites. And although I called, You didn't save me out of their hands. When I saw that you wouldn't help, I took my life in my hands and crossed over to fight the Ammonites. And the Lord gave me their victory over them. Now we have come up today. Now, why have you come up today? To fight me? Oh my, so Jephthah called together the men of Gilead and fought against Ephraim. And the Gileadites struck them down because the Ephraimites said, you Gileadites are renegades from Ephraim and Manasseh. The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan leading to Ephraim. And whenever a survivor of Ephraim said, let me cross over, the men of Gilead asked him, are you an Ephraimite? If they replied no, they said, all right, say Shibboleth. And if he said Sibboleth, because he cannot pronounce the word correctly, they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. Dang.
No, that's crazy, bro. Bro, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in this book at this moment. I don't know what's going on in this book because now the Israelites are fighting Israelites now. That's what it's come to now. Granted, Abimelech started. He was the first one we see in this book that just turned on other Israelites and just decide killing them and stuff like that. He was crazy in my opinion. But this a flat out war. The Ephraimites are provocative, bro. Like they provoke you. They keep saying, and no matter what you do, you in your own struggles for your own people, and you having your own personal moment with God, who is leading you to do this. But the Ephraimites saying, oh, why you ain't come to me? Why you ain't come to us? I don't get it, bro. I don't know culturally what's going on with the Ephraimites. They seem pretty aggressive to me. And now this to a point where they meet somebody who like, bro, you see what Gibeon say? What did it say? He did say something like, he did say something slick to them, man, when they asked him.
Oh yeah, he essentially said like, he essentially stroked their egos.
Yeah, like
you guys already did
so
all
much.
these. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, y'all did so much, man. Let me get one. You understand? But Jephthah, no. Bro, he was a man of many words with the Ammonites, but with y'all, I ain't doing too much talking with y'all. Is war.
And he also say too, I asked y'all for help, and y'all essentially left me to die.
That's true. I asked y'all. We are. What you mean I didn't ask y'all? I asked y'all, and I waited, and I say, all right, y'all want me go alone? I'll go alone, and we won. Now what y'all want to do? Y'all want to be angry? All right, let's do this then.
Now, it's so interesting that apparently the Ephraimites had a hard time pronouncing the word H, which is clearly they say Shibboleth and they say Sibboleth. So clearly the H was...
Yeah, the letter H was whooping their butt.
They're like people from Harbor Island.
Yeah, for true. Because they say Island, but anyway,
yeah,
we ain't gotta get into all that. But yeah, that's funny. But then like I don't know what people who speak English struggle with. Well, I think it kind of depends on not the language, but your accent or the region where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when we say "bye," people in America like they have a very hard time saying that. And the viewers who listening now who trying to say "bye," you're more than likely saying it wrong. I'll just be honest with you. But thanks for trying. But yeah, like I don't know. Well, from a Bahamian standpoint, like I don't know which words we really struggle with or what. I don't know. What under the bridge though? We know that the Ephraimites cannot pronounce the letter H, so they would say Sibboleth. And boy, they did not know that their life depend on that H. You understand?
42,000 were killed. That's insane. That's really, and it's so interesting because again, the fact that a common enemy of ours was defeated was overlooked. A common enemy of ours was defeated, but we are warring against ourselves now.
See, this where like the Israelites, they really spiraling out of control now. They fighting each other now. What a time in history. They are fighting each other. I don't know. I don't get it.
And now we see he led the Israelites for 6 years. So all this happened in 6 years. That's a relatively short time for 42,000 people to die. I'm just saying. That's a lot of it. It's a short time.
Very short reign and everything.
Mm-hmm. Now Jephthah, the Gileadite, died and was buried in the town of Gilead. And then so after him, we get Ibzan of Bethlehem led Israel. He had 30 sons. I don't know why people like the number 30 so much. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He gave his daughters away into marriage to those outside his clan. And for his sons, he brought in 30 women as wives from outside his clan. Abzal led Israel for 7 years. Then he died and was buried in Bethlehem. After him was Elon, not Musk, but Elon the Zebulite, led Israel 10 years. Elon died and was buried in Ajalon in the land of Zebulun. After him was Abdon, son of Hillel from Pirathon, led Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode 70 donkeys and led Israel 8 years. Then Abdon, son of Hillel, died and was buried in Pirathon in Ephraim, the hill country of the Amalekites. So that is a synopsis of about 6 judges that we covered in this episode. The main focus was Jephthah, naturally, and the other 5 more. We just got a little brief. They reigned, they had this much sons, and there's a wrap.
I rather that than to hear how the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, turned away. And this really reinforced what we learned in, the Deuteronomy, Numbers, the Torah, basically, where idol worship is covered a lot in those books, like a lot, bro. And it's covered so much. And then it's a continuation in Joshua, and then in Judges, we see how idolatry was the cause of the fall of all of these nations. It's very intriguing to me because you might never hear a sermon on idol worship or idolatry. You don't hear much. Nakhaz, I have not heard much in my life in terms of sermons or people preaching about staying away from idols or what idols look like. But here it is, bro. All of the books we covered thus far spoke about idols, bro. And they spoke about how lethal, detrimental to your spirituality and your life they are, and how detestable they are to God. That is wild to me. And so in the book of Judges so far, the downfall of Israel every time has been, with the exception, well, I wouldn't say all of Israel, but the downfall of the people in the story, with the exception of one time with Abimelech, has been idols. It's been idols, just idols straight through. And spoiler alert, it's gonna continue. You understand what I'm saying? This is time. Yeah, this is not ending. And so this is something for us to think about, because it's nothing new under the sun. You know what I'm saying? This is nothing new under the sun. And we already know how the Lord feels about this, right? But when it comes to Japhtha, it wasn't specifically the idol, but it was the culture of the idol. It was the mark left on him by the idols. It was the mindset. And the text, which Earl mentioned earlier in Samuel, comes to mind. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Because it will come a time, or it has come a time, or it may come a time when somebody asking you to sacrifice something spiritually for something worldly. You understand? But you have to remember, obedience, being obedient to the Lord is better than not sacrifice.
The story of Japhtha follows a trend of men that were judges over Israel, but lacked judgment when it pertains to the commands of God. Jephthah believed and had faith in God, but his sacrifice was plagued by the pagan traditions of the land. Traditions that were not only in opposition to God, but traditions that cost him the life of his only child. Soon thereafter, we get introduced to a new couple, the parents of a soon-to-be judge, who were given strict instructions to never cut his hair. But we'll talk more about Manoah and his wife on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your host, Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.